Hi, everybody. Welcome to CoreLight's Spiritual Weather Report for December 12th, 2021. That's 12/12. What an interesting number. And this is Brad, and I'm here in the United States, and my beloved Leslie is in South Africa. And we welcome you all, especially welcome to our longtime CoreLight community, as well as people who are new. And I realize we have a lot of new people today with us, just like we did last month. I know that many of you found out about CoreLight recently from the course that I co-taught with our friend Anna Breitenbach for the love of animals. And so I welcome you, and just very happy that you're here, and very happy that all of you are here. I know many of you listen to this recording later, and yet there is no time and space, so we're all together actually, no matter what time you're listening to this, whether it's real time or future time or whatever. So today is, like I said, 12/12, and that's a power day. And a shaman friend of mine once told me that for her it's one of the most powerful days of the year. And she said that power actually begins building on August 8th, which is 8/8, and that's also known as the Lion's Gate. And that's when the star Sirius aligns with our sun, which is in Leo, the lion. And it's an ancient celebration amongst shamanic cultures. So the energy starts then and begins building and continues to build over the final 4 months of the year, 9/9, 10/10, 11/11, and now 12/12, December 12th. So there are many shamans who practice rituals on these days, and I just thought that this was I chose to stay because I felt it was an auspicious day for us to be meeting. So I'm really happy that we're together and we get to do this. Plus, we've got the solstice coming up and the holidays coming up, and this is a very interesting time, let's say, for lack of a better word, for mystics, for all of us who consider ourselves mystics, because the holidays are a mix of religion and the dogma that goes along with that, but also it is a very sacred time. It's a power time, ancient and shamanic. So we'll discuss this more later in the call today. I'm not going to get into it right now, but just wanted to underscore that. And also at the end of the call today, I'm going to offer an exercise that we can all do to take advantage of this powerful time. And it's an exercise in bringing in the energies of the new year and in closing out on the energies of the old. So, letting go of the things we don't want, we don't need anymore, releasing, surrendering, all of that. So this time that we're in, this window, is a great opportunity for empowerment, I would say, from now all the way through New Year's, but especially now 12/12 through the solstice, 12/21, numerologically speaking as well. It's a lot of ones and twos. So a good time to take advantage of as a mystic. And before we go further, I wanted to mention that we're going to be sending out an email soon about a call for a global meditation on the solstice on 12/21, because we're at such a pivotal time in our collective transformation, and I'm sure most of you are aware of that this is the perfect moment. The solstice will be the perfect moment because the solstice represents the pivot time. It's literally the pivoting of the sun into its different phase. So we'll talk about that as well a little bit. And because our collective consciousness is also at a pivotal time, this is the perfect moment for us to gather and create what we call a power of one. The power of one is the power of the one mind, power of the one heart. And so when we all put our collective intentions together in the group and we pray and meditate together, it is exponential power. So I know there are other groups. Also, I saw the other day there's some other groups calling for the same thing. So I get the feeling we're going to be, if you feel called to this, we'll be linking up with other groups and creating a field of love. So look for our email. I don't want to talk about that further now. I'll explain it in the email, but look for that email from us with the details on that. And it'll be at sunrise or sunset in your time zone, and it'll be rolling across the globe. So it's not like you have to wake up at 3 in the morning if you're in Australia or something. So let's see, what else before we begin? I wanted to just mention something about the solstice. It felt really important to kind of kick off today with talking about the solstice that's coming up on 12/21. And it's a time, as I'm sure you all know, when in the Northern Hemisphere, we experience the shortest day of the year and the longest night. And it marks the point of the return to the light, because the days start to get longer as we approach the summer solstice. And in the Southern Hemisphere, we experience the longest day of the year and the shortest night of the year, and it marks the opposite point, the receding back into the darkness, because the days begin to get shorter as we approach the winter solstice in June. And because I've spent lots of time in both hemispheres, being that Leslie's from South Africa and we've been spending time there for over 25 years, I've had this experience. I know the power of this moment. It doesn't matter which hemisphere you're in. And it's no wonder that our ancient ancestors used to celebrate the solstice as one of the most sacred and powerful days of the year. Because I think the themes of light and dark are part of our primal human nature, and our ancient ancestors knew that, and a lot of us have forgotten that. And nowadays, it may be for a long time this has happened, but certainly nowadays we use so much of our energy avoiding and suppressing the darkness. Feeling the emotions that we think are dark is no fun, and we push them into the unconscious. And then we start to judge ourselves for even having them at all. And so we try to pretend they're not there, and we sweep them under the carpet. It's literally like that. It's like we sweep dirt under the carpet. And, that's it doesn't do anything. The dirt is still there. It's just hidden from view, but it accumulates, and then it begins to create lumps in the carpet. Just like when we sweep too much shadow into the unconscious, it starts to create lumps in our life. We start to notice it poking out all over the place. And our fear of that, our fear of the darkness, literally creates separation. So in pushing those parts of us away, we literally separate ourselves from our own power. We separate ourselves from knowing our wholeness. And so this time that we're in, the solstice time, helps us to remember that our journey is about finding that balance between dark and light. It's about integrating that polarity of dark and light. It's where we embrace all the parts of us, all of them. And when we can learn to allow those parts of us that we might not be so proud of, let's say, and we begin to understand them, then our journey of awakening to the truth of who we really are begins to take off in a much different way, in a much more accelerated way. So when we make that shift, it's literally the pivot point into discovering that we're so much more than that duality of light and dark. We begin to discover that we're made of love. I feel like I've already launched into topic of the day, and we haven't done our guided meditation yet. And I also had a few little housekeeping things I wanted to say. So let's press the pause button on that. Getting a little bit ahead of myself there. And so I want to say for everybody who might be new to these calls, the Spiritual Weather Report calls, here's how they work. I start by offering a guided meditation, and then I'll speak about the prevailing energies that are affecting us, and also about the spiritual principles that are most helpful for us right now. And then we have time for questions and answers, and we close the session with a brief guided meditation or a prayer or an exercise or whatever we have time for. And if you need to leave before the call ends, you can always listen to the recording later. We do send out the link to our email list, and it's also posted on YouTube. So here are some of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. Let me get my notes here. I wrote them down. We're going to be talking about difficult decisions and big changes, using the holiday season to ascend in consciousness, focusing on peace, love, and joy. And the last one is love is always the top priority. It's funny, I initially wrote down making love the top priority, but then when I reread it, making love the top priority, I thought that might be interpreted as a little risque by some people. Let's call it love is always the top priority. So before we go into our guided meditation, I just wanted to mention a few things, a few little housekeeping things, and that is one of them is that we have exciting plans at CoreLight for 2022. We've got a new learning management system that we're installing so that we can run our courses on this beautiful new system called Kajabi. It's not only beautiful, but it's impeccable, and it's so easy to use. It's the same platform as we used with the For Love of Animals course. So if you took that course, you know how beautiful it is and how easy to use it is. And if you've ever taken our courses before, you know that we've been experimenting a little bit, but this one is really the bomb. This one is going to be super fantastic. So I'm so looking forward to sharing that with you. And I'm starting to plan some of the courses for next year. And I would love to hear from you. I would love to know what topics would most support you. CoreLight's going through changes. We're going through big changes. We're just like everybody I know. And we sent out a survey by email on Thursday this past week on December 9th. So if you didn't get it or didn't have time to reply to it, I would ask you please go and find it. Look in your junk. Again, it went out on December 9th, so you have it if you're on our email list. And it gives you lots of places to share, and I'm going to read everything. So if you want to provide input for what we're going to offer next year, I would love to hear from you. I feel so strongly about this. My role is to support you. So I want to know what will help. And so do please let me know. Another thing I wanted to mention is you may know that in October we launched our Leslie's Sacred Art Gallery. And a lot of people, I noticed it went into people's junk folders and we didn't really push it. We only sent out a couple of emails about it. So if you missed it or you haven't been yet, I would invite you to go. There's a set of greeting cards that I'm so proud of. It's like they're just so beautiful. They're museum quality, and it's one of each of 6 of Leslie's best paintings. And they're stunningly gorgeous. So it makes a really great holiday gift. I don't want to sound like a salesman. It doesn't really, the money is not what this is about, but there's a transmission that comes with Leslie's paintings. And her guides taught her how to imbue paintings with a transmission of energy. So it literally comes through the paintings, and you can get one of each in these holiday cards. they're not holiday cards. They are greeting cards, and I know quite a few people have already got them. I noticed the other day that we've sold quite a few. So thank you if you've purchased them, and we kept the price very low so that there'd be something affordable for everybody on the Sacred Art Gallery. If you feel drawn to that, if you need a gift for somebody, it's a great holiday gift. So it's also wonderful just to have in your possession so you can enjoy the beauty and the transmission that comes through. And lastly, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all of you for your love and support over the year. This is the end of the year, and it's a time when our nonprofit receives most of our donations. So I want to thank you for your donations to CoreLight and Seeds of Light, our humanitarian arm that supports AIDS orphans in South Africa and marginalized communities. We really appreciate your remembering us as you do your end of the year giving so that we can continue our work of spreading light. And I bow in gratitude to all of you. Thank you for that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin our guided meditation. I invite you to get comfortable. Close your eyes and just relax. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths. Just letting go. Completely relaxing with each exhale. Breathing in the light. Breathing out any tension that you might be holding on to in your body. Breathing in the love and the life force that surrounds you. Breathing out stress and shadow. Breathing in this present moment. And breathing out any worries about the past or the future. So let's continue our breathing together. And I'll just speak to you a little bit while you continue to breathe. I wanted to share with new people about the transmission that happens during these calls. As most of you already know, Leslie, my beloved partner, overlights these calls. And there's a transmission of healing energy that comes through. And so we invite you to be meditative, not just during the guided meditation, but throughout the call, and receive the transmission even while we're talking. And as I said before, whether you're live with us today or listening to the recording in the future, it doesn't really matter because we're all part of a field. We're all connected at that level. No time and space in the third dimension. And so we invite everyone to tune in to these other levels beyond time and space where we're all connected in unity and in love. We all receive this transmission of light that comes through during the call, and whether you feel it or not, it doesn't matter. It's still happening. And to be clear, nobody's doing anything to you. This is just a field of love that we're all creating, and it's healing energy. And so you can just choose to receive it if you wish. You just simply set the intention that you'd like to receive it, and it will happen. Like I said, even if you don't feel it. You can just welcome it in. So as you continue to breathe, let's relax the muscles from head to toes, as we always do on these calls. Relaxation is so important. Some people say that enlightenment is just a very deep relaxation. And so we like to take a little time to just really let go and relax at the beginning of these calls. So I invite you to feel a warm liquid pouring over the top of your head like honey. And as it pours over your scalp, feel all the muscles of your head relax, especially your eyes and the many, many muscles, the little tiny muscles surrounding your eyes, and especially the jaw and the back of the tongue. So feel that warm honey pouring over all the muscles, pouring over your neck and shoulders, relaxing. We hold a lot of tension in our shoulders, so especially focus on the shoulders. Pouring down over the arms, all the way down to the hands and fingers, just relaxing all the muscles. Feel that warm honey pouring over your torso, your chest, your upper back, lower back, abdomen. Pelvis. All around the whole pelvic region. Upper legs, front and back. Lower legs, feet and toes. Just feeling this warmth flowing through you from head to toes, sweeping your body clean. Any tension. Just melting all those muscles that are tight. And I'm going to be, I'm going to be quiet for a moment, and I'll allow you to take some time to scan your body again from head to toes, just breathing and relaxing, breathing light and healing energy into any place where you're still holding on to tension. And now I invite you to put your attention on the core of your body. And if you're new to these calls, the core, if you could see it at a subtle physical level, it's literally like a tube of light that runs down the center of your body right in front of the spine. And in Sanskrit, it's known as the Sushumna. And when we put our attention there, we tap into the luminous core of enlightenment that is within each one of us. So it's a really good thing to focus on in meditation. And let's just take a moment to all do that. Just to feel that core energy lighting us up from within. See it as bright, white, golden light. Sort of the size of a fluorescent light, fluorescent tube that you plug into to the ceiling. Going from head to root chakra, from crown to root chakra. And let's extend it down below the body. So we'll put our attention in the root chakra, just gently feeling that place. It's the perineum, the place between the anus and the genitals. And when we put our attention there, we can just feel the root chakra naturally relax and open. And so we drop our core energy, or the grounding cord, however you like to call it, down into the earth, connecting with the core of the earth. Drawing that earth energy back up into the body through the soles of the feet. Letting our own energy and the earth energy commingle. And just feel how gravity gently pulls you towards the earth, and feel how the earth supports you from beneath in the form of the floor and the chair. And just breathe and relax into that embrace of Mother Earth. Letting go completely. Surrendering into the arms of Mother Earth like a little baby being cradled by its mother. Just letting go. And now let's bring the energy right up to the core. Again, focusing on the core as a luminous tube of light running down the center of the body. And draw our energy all the way up the core to the crown chakra at the top of the head. And, it's okay if you're not feeling anything, if you're new to this and this is challenging for you, it's okay. You can just visualize. We've all been at that place where we were just starting off learning about these things and learning to feel energy. So you can always just visualize and set the intention that you want to feel this, and it will happen one day. And so again, feel the crown chakra sitting on the top of the head like a crown that a king or a queen would wear. And feel how it opens up when we put our attention there. Naturally, it opens up like a 1,000-petaled lotus, unfurling petal by petal on the top of the head. It's a beautiful feeling. Allow it to open up more and more. And feel it spreading out and up like a funnel up on top of the head, opening up. This is our connection with the oneness. And let's send the core, the Sushumna, right out the top of the head into formless space. Connecting with a source of universal energy. Can be whatever you choose. Group of angelic beings, or spiral galaxy, or the sun, or whatever represents universal energy to you. And let's draw that energy down into the top of the head, into the body, feeding the core, filling up the body. You might feel a group of celestial beings with their hands above your head pouring light down into you. And just receive it. Just relax and allow it to enter your body, lighting up the core. And let's feel that core expand. Feel it growing wider and wider and wider throughout the whole body to the point where it encompasses your entire physical body. And as you fill up with light and the core expands more and more, just feel yourself sitting or standing or lying inside this beautiful tube of light. And allow that beautiful golden white light, pure source energy, enlightenment energy, to soak into your body, into every cell of your body, from head to toes. You can visualize each cell like a miniature sponge, soaking up the light. So you have trillions of these little sponges soaking up the light. And while you stay with this and just receive and absorb this beautiful healing light, I'm going to say a prayer and an invocation for our call today. We call on Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, the self that we all are. We call on all the angels and the guides, teachers, all the beings in the invisible realms who surround us in the highest love and support. We invite you into our call today, to this sacred circle. We ask that you please surround us in a cocoon of beautiful golden white light and love and healing energy. Guide our conversation into the highest love, the highest wisdom, so that we can walk into our soul's highest purpose for this incarnation. Please hold our hands as we walk this path together into our highest purpose. And we're especially grateful today for this opportunity to share our time and our love, and to be wearing these beautiful, amazing bodies that we think is who we are. We're grateful that these bodies are on loan to us for a few years from Mother Earth. We're so grateful that we get to have this experience at this amazing time. We're so grateful to be here on this gorgeous planet Earth at this extraordinary time when human consciousness is pivoting from one age to another into an age of peace and love. What a remarkable gift and opportunity. So we ask that you hold our hands through this passage as we face the challenges associated with this time, all the changes and challenges and what have you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so now when you feel ready, slowly bring your awareness back into the room and into your body. Unless, of course, you want to just stay in meditation the whole time, which is perfectly fine. But I know many people need to multitask, so this would be a time to slowly wiggle your fingers and toes and slowly open your eyes. And welcome. Wow, I love those meditations. I really love it's my opportunity to really be quiet with you. I do so much talking on these calls that I like that time to talk with you and feel you. And I think it's a time where we're all connecting to each other and creating this field of love that we get to bathe in through the rest of the call. So thank you. I thank you for showing up and being part of this. It's one of the highlights for me. So I'm grateful to you. So let's go ahead and launch into some of the topics that I wanted to talk about today. When I tuned in on everyone and the energies, prevailing energies, I got those topics I mentioned. The first one is difficult decisions and big changes. And I'm aware that there are many people all over the world right now facing difficult decisions. And for some of us, it's the most challenging of our lives. And I know people are facing challenges of all kinds, some of them life-changing. I've heard this from friends in many countries, Australia and South Africa and Brazil and all over Europe, especially, I think, in Europe and Australia. All over North America as well, Canada and the United States especially. So the common denominator seems to be that there's a lot of worry and fear going around. I know many people are getting immersed in that worry energy, the fear energy, and when that happens, we can so easily lose sight of the bigger picture. So I felt it was important to talk about this, and it's critical in situations like this to practice witnessing. And I know I talk about that every month, so I'm not going to go into it, but this is just your monthly reminder from Brad to practice witnessing. But this is what it comes down to. Can we face these challenges and remember who we truly are? That's what witnessing is about. So can we by the way, if you don't know what witnessing is, if you're brand new, it's in our book, The Marriage of Spirit. There's a chapter on it, and I would invite you to go check that out. It's one of the most powerful practices anybody can do, and it's so needed these days. So I guess the question for all of us is can we feel those energies of fear and worry passing through us? And remember that fear is just a frequency. Can we remember that that vibration of worry is not who we really are? We're the pure awareness. We are made of love, and these lower vibratory states are just passing through us, and that's what the witnessing practice does. It reminds us of that. And I know this is easier said than done, even if you've been on a spiritual path for decades, So if you struggle with this, you're not alone. And, I'm not saying this, it's not meant to make you feel bad about yourself if you're not perfect at practicing witnessing. We're all on a learning curve with this. It's just important to keep practicing, even if you tend to forget. Even if you forget for a few hours or even days or even weeks, it's totally understandable. This is just how life on planet Earth is in the human body these days. So I know most of us on the call, maybe everybody, we have a clear mental understanding of this concept, of witnessing, and we get it in principle. But when things get really intense, like they are now, and we get pushed to our limits, and we're feeling that intensity of the emotions, and we tend to forget the truth of this, of who we are. And it's much more challenging to practice witnessing in times like this. So we get immersed in those lower vibrations, and everything seems so real, and we get lost in the details of whatever the situation is unfolding in the third dimension. And we forget that we're the pure awareness. We forget that we are a soul. We are eternal. And we're having a temporary experience of being human. So we literally forget to remember. And I feel like that's the key, remembering to remember. And there's so many practical ways. Most of you know all these. You put sticky notes on your bathroom mirror, or you do whatever you need to do. Meditating especially helps, but any method of processing the ego or reminding yourself, that's the key for right now, remembering to remember who you are. So I know for everybody who's been around CoreLight for a period of time, you know all these basic things, but I thought to share something with you today that you may not have heard before. And this is something that Leslie taught long ago, and I had a personal experience of it that was so powerful for me, and I wrote about it in my book. And I've really been drawing on the memory of that experience lately, and it's really helped me. So I thought to bring it up today. But I guess before I share it with you, I feel like it's also important to remember that even if you're not experiencing a major challenge in your life or a big decision, the fear and the worry in the collective can be so strong, and especially lately, that you need to have a strong witnessing practice not to get sucked down into it. And we tend to think that the fear and the worry are ours, like we own the fear and the worry. But a lot of times we're just feeling the collective fear and worry. So I've talked about that before. I'm not going to dwell on that, but just to remember that piece. And the other thing to say I wanted to mention is that it also doesn't help if we're feeling tired and run down. If we're feeling that way, it can weaken our ability to witness. And I know a lot of people, especially people who are sensitives, people who are healers and psychics and so forth, many people are struggling with this right now. A lot of people experiencing strange sleep patterns. And we can wake up in the morning feeling like we worked all night. We didn't get the sleep we wanted. And the truth is, it's because we did work all night. I know it's happening to me and many people I know. There's just so much going on the inner planes right now that we're just doing a lot of our energetic work at night. And if you're one of these people who's not sleeping well right now, so you're not alone. And if you are sleeping well, you can just consider yourself blessed and just give thanks. And we never know why this is, but whatever's happening to you, it's perfect. There's no problem with it. I know a lot of people freak out when we don't get the sleep we want. But, that's what happens at night is we're doing our work. We're processing our own consciousness. We're siphoning off shadow from the collective, to the degree we're able. We do it unconsciously. We do it at night when it's easier. We're not aware of it. It's just sort of if we're a natural born healer or, an evolved soul, that's just what we do. So in times like this, we have to remember to be gentle with ourselves. We need to do extra self-care. And I know we talk about that almost every month as well. So here's your monthly reminder about doing extra self-care from me. So, you get your massage, you spend more time exercising or being in nature, or, you take the nap that you wouldn't normally allow yourself. But you do what you need to do to take care of yourself. It's so important right now. Anyway, the spiritual principle that I wanted to share with you is important because it explains why we're experiencing some of the darkest shadow and some of the most intense emotions right before the biggest breakthroughs in consciousness. And the piece I wanted to share with you about this is in the guided meditation today, we talked about the core and how the core that runs down the center of the body right in front of the spine, in Sanskrit it's called the Sushumna, that is the core of enlightenment within us. And if you could see it, you would see that it's this beautiful tube of golden white light, and we can tap into that light. And those are the spiritual experiences that we have when we have an aha moment, or when we have a satori experience of some kind. We're literally tapping into that subtle physical core of enlightenment within us. And to the degree to which we can tap into it, it's an experience of our enlightenment. And the key is this. This is what I was getting to, is that there's a dark veil wrapped around the core. And Leslie used to describe it as being sort of like a black, thick, tarry substance. Very dense energy, very shadowy. It's all the shadow aspects of the ego. It's all that dense stuff that we shove into our unconscious, all the things that we would prefer not to look at. And so when we tap into that dark veil that surrounds the Sushumna, we feel fear. And it's the fear that makes us want to turn around and go the other direction, which is why we don't have, spiritual experiences, satori moments, are less common than we would like for this very reason. It's so uncomfortable to be in that vibration of fear and worry and the other dense emotions that we avoid it like the plague. We don't want to be there. So we do anything to get out of it. And that's why it's the rare person who chooses a path of enlightenment, because it takes courage, and it takes having a strong witness, practicing witnessing to the point where you can be in those energies, you can be with them for a period of time without freaking out or without being so uncomfortable, that you want to just cut and run and suppress it. And again, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. Like we all struggle with this. That's not what I'm saying this for. It's not so you can judge yourself. That would just add to the shadow. So please, if you're starting to judge yourself, don't do it. It's like, this is just human nature. This is just how it works. So it takes that strong witness to be able to move through the fear and the dense emotions and remember that it's not real, that the fear is just a vibration. It's not who we are. And so to get to that core within us, that luminous core of enlightenment, we have to pass through that dark veil. And the closer we get to the core, the more we move through that shadow, the darker it becomes and the more intense the emotions become. But if we can persevere through it and make it through what seems like a very challenging passage, then there comes that moment where we just pop into the light. And that's such an amazing experience that changes your life permanently. And at that point, it's a lot easier to remember who you are after that. Your witness becomes so strong after that you're not so easily fooled by those dense emotions. And you really know deep inside who you truly are. So the reason I wanted to share that with you is because it's helpful to know this if you're going through a really challenging time. If you're one of the people who's really struggling right now, then it's helpful when you're practicing your witnessing and you're feeling those intense emotions like fear and worry to remember that you're okay and that on the other side of this is the breakthrough that's just sitting there waiting to happen. It's there already. It's like the light exists. It's inside you. It's bright white light just on the other side of that dark veil. And sometimes, it might take a little extra persistence. It might take some more perseverance with witnessing through that density in order to be able to go the distance and eventually to experience the breakthrough into the light. And I remember when I went through that experience of the dark veil once, I felt, it's so hard to describe. I'm not going to go into it too deep, but I felt so hopeless. I felt helpless. I felt like I experienced some of the darkest, most painful emotions I'd ever felt in my life. And it just kept intensifying. It kept getting worse and worse and worse until I didn't think I could take it anymore. But I knew at some level of my being that I had been given the tools. I knew what I needed to do. I knew that I just needed to keep practicing witnessing and reminding myself, you're not these emotions. You're pure awareness. This too shall pass. You're okay. All is well. You're pure love. All those mantras that we can use. And not suppressing the shadow, allowing it, but also remembering to say these things at the same time as much as I could. And so, even though I might not have been able to feel the truth of those words in the moment, it was like that was all I had to hang on to. It was like a thread. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, then suddenly I just popped into the light. And so I don't want to share the whole experience. I mean, I wrote a chapter about it in my book, but I'm sharing this part of it with you today because I think that this is an experience. It may not be as dramatic as I'm describing, but it's an experience that a lot of us are going through at an individual level right now. So if you're facing challenging emotions, or if you're feeling especially alone or separate, or you're feeling fear, or you're worrying, or whatever it is, if it's dense and intense and it seems like it's getting worse, it's so important to remember that you're in that veil. You're in that black, tarry stuff, and the light is just on the other side. And I feel like the other thing I want to share about this is that I feel like this is what we're going through as a collective. It makes sense because a collective is just a group of individuals, so the process is similar. And I feel like collectively we're also in that dark veil right now. And if you just look at the challenges that we've all been through in the last almost 2 years now, it makes sense that people are starting to feel hopeless and afraid. And there are a lot of people feeling so depressed and wallowing in these very intense emotions. And it's because of this thing I'm describing. We're passing through the dark veil. It literally separates us from the light and from knowing who we truly are. And who we truly are is love. So I was meditating and I got such a clear message that I needed to talk about this today to help us all to remember to hang in there, just a little bit longer. I know this may sound cliche, but it really is true. And that is the darkest hour is just before the dawn. And that's really the moral of the story. that is a universal truth. And I literally experienced, so I can speak with conviction about it because I know it's true. And I'll bet you many of you have had similar experiences of your own, so you understand what I'm talking about. And so I just invite everybody to hang in there because, big changes are coming for our planet. In many ways I can go with this, so just bear with me for a moment. I just want to focus on what to say here about these changes. What I feel strongly inside, and what so many people who I trust also feel, is that we're due for a breakthrough really soon. And nobody can see exactly what that is. But energetically, you can feel, if you're sensitive, you can feel we're in store for some kind of, breakthrough or like a reveal of some kind, something that causes a shift in the collective consciousness. And I feel like we're going to have a series of these over the coming years that very gradually move us more and more into this whole new paradigm that we're always talking about at CoreLight. It's what Leslie, for decades, has called the new paradigm of the heart. And I'm not going to go into depth about what that is if it's the first time you're hearing about it. I taught a course about it last year, and we're going to release that course on our new platform in next year. So again, it's called the new paradigm of the heart, and it's really it's a collective consciousness. It's where many of us are living in a state where the heart is permanently open. And we just love, and we know that we are love, and we can share that love. And it's not dependent on the outside circumstances. So I'm not saying this is going to be easy. I feel like as we continue to move through that dark veil, it's probably not going to look good, and it's probably not going to feel very pleasant some of the time, but we're going to get through it no matter what it looks like. We're just in this passage. We're going through that thick black tarry stuff, and on the other side of it is this core energy, this light that we will move into. And again, it's not... I don't think it has to be one dramatic moment where, like suddenly, bang, we pop into the light, neither for individuals nor for the collective. I think it's a rare experience. It's a rare person who has that experience. I think for most people, the awakening process is very gradual. And, we peel some layers of that dark veil of ego, and then we get a little taste of our enlightenment. And then we take some time to integrate to that level of awakening. And then we're ready for another, we peel away the veil of ego, and we experience a whole new level of our awakening. And then we take time to integrate that level. And it goes on like that into whatever level of awakening we choose to go into. And I feel like that's what's happening to us collectively right now. We're on that journey, peeling away that dark veil, experiencing fear, experiencing worry, all the dense emotions, exposing those dark shadows in the collective consciousness. And then, we have a breakthrough into the light, and we take time to integrate that. And that's just how it goes. So, I guess I'm speaking to myself here as well as you, because I feel like we're really due for the breakthrough. Doesn't it feel like that to you? I definitely feel it. I'm ready. I'm more than ready. Oh boy. Okay, so let's move on. I wanted to talk about some more things today, and I think I've made that point pretty clear. So the second thing is using the holiday season to ascend in consciousness. And like I said before at the beginning of the call, this is kind of an amazing time of year. It's a lot of people's favorite time of year. It's one of my favorite times of year. And I find it extra easy to experience joy and to experience the light. But I know for some people, it's their least favorite time of year. And if that's true for you, I think it can be for many reasons. It can be a stressful time, especially in the United States. Our culture here can be a little bit nuts over the holidays with all the things that you're required to do, the decorating and the buying presents and financial stress and all the stuff that accompanies all of that. And the way that our culture has commercialized what is supposed to be a sacred time of year is part of the challenge of the holidays. And usually there are lots of parties and family gatherings and so forth, and that also causes its own level of stress and busyness. And of course, with COVID, I'm not sure how many parties there are going to be this year. Maybe not many, depending on where you live, I guess. So maybe things will be a little bit calmer than normal for most people this year. But if you're visiting family, that can be stressful, no matter where you are. Even if you love your family very much, it's just that it tends to bring up a lot of childhood issues, a lot of deep programming for most people. And if you're sensitive, as I would guess pretty much everybody listening to this is, then you can feel all the shadow stuff going around, all of the unfinished business between family members and all the subconscious projections that people have with each other. And it can be like a war zone on the inner planes at family gatherings and at the holidays. But everybody's trying so hard to suppress it so that they can have a good time, and so they can try to show that they love each other. And as we all know, when you try to suppress or avoid what you're feeling, it actually makes it a lot worse. It starts to feel like a pressure cooker. And that leads to explosions, as we know. So if you're sensitive, it can be really uncomfortable to be around all of that stuff. I remember Leslie used to say, if you think you're enlightened, go spend some time with your family, especially your parents, and see how you do. So I always looked at those visits with my parents and my family as a yardstick, a way to measure my own evolution, to see how clear my consciousness is. How strong can I witness? How well can I maintain equanimity? And if I get really triggered, then I know the areas that I need to focus on, and I can do some more processing work on that stuff. So it's actually a great opportunity. It's a gift in that way to clear some deeper layers of our childhood programming, even though it can feel uncomfortable, let's say. But it helps to look at this as the gift that it is, and it helps us to learn to love everybody more, and really to learn to love ourselves more. Because that's so much of what this path is about, learning to love ourselves more. And I realize some of you listening to this may not have been raised in the same kind of culture that I was in the United States, where you have these issues around the end of the year holidays. I know we have people from India and the Far East who participate in the calls, and I know some people were raised as Buddhists or Hindus or Islamic, and I know some people just don't have a lot of issues with your family, which is great. And, if that's you, just feel blessed. Just give thanks, because for everybody else, it can be a really challenging time of year. But even if you weren't raised in this kind of culture, or you feel like you just don't have many family issues, we can all benefit from practicing this principle that I'm describing. We can all use our relationships with our families, or any relationship actually, as a great opportunity to clear our consciousness. So if you're on a path of conscious spiritual evolution, then one of the most powerful things you can do is what we call practicing self-inquiry. It's about looking into the mirror and doing some self-examination. And because the people who are in our world are a mirror of our own unconscious self, then all of our relationships become an opportunity to look in the mirror and to see aspects of ourselves that we're often unconscious of. So that's what it's all about. It's all about making the unconscious conscious, and that's the key to our spiritual growth, making the unconscious conscious. And the principle of mirrors is especially important for our relationships with our family, because at a soul level, we all chose to incarnate with each other and to reflect different personality traits back to each other so that we can remind each other of the lessons that we came in to learn. For better or worse. Sometimes it just really sucks. But once you become conscious of it, and once you develop a witness to it, it actually becomes fun. It becomes more fun, let's say. It can be fun. It can become like a game, and we can learn to laugh more about it. So let's go to the next topic. I wanted to talk about peace, love, and joy at the holidays. I've been in South Africa for the last many years for the holidays, and I really love it there because the culture is so different around the holidays. I'll bet you people in Australia and others in the Southern Hemisphere know exactly what I'm talking about. It's, like I said, it's summer, so it's relaxing. It's about going to the beach or going to the pool. You're hanging out, just really not doing much. And actually, the entire country of South Africa shuts down between mid-December and mid-January, and it's really incredibly refreshing. You can't get anything done anyway, so you might as well stop because nobody else is going to, jump in with you to do things. So it's much more relaxing, and so if you're in a country like that, just feel the blessing of it. But I wanted to talk about this because now that I'm back in the U.S., I'm remembering what it's like to be here. And as I shared, I know that many people have a hard time with the stress and the busyness of it all. But even despite that, it's still one of my favorite times of year. And I'm having a lot of insights about this lately, so I thought I would share some of them with you in case it's helpful. I'm having an experience. It's what I would call like a coming full circle experience. A lot of memories of childhood Christmases are surfacing, most of them very happy, and I started to wonder about that, and I decided to look deeper at it in meditation because I could feel there was some kind of deep stirring happening in my subconscious around these memories. And I wanted to try to understand it better and to use it as a growth opportunity. And I would invite all of you, I invite everybody to do the same. For me, I remember feeling so much joy around the holidays because it was a time when the adults were mostly in a good mood and they seemed happier than normal. So it was a time when there were parties and big family gatherings and vacations with the family, and And I guess what I've realized is that as a child, one of the most important imprints that I received about happiness was about the joy of being in the community, being in the tribe, in the family. Like connecting with other people seemed to be a key ingredient in everybody's happiness. So I think that's a really important truth that we can all do well to remember right now. When I meditate on it, it feels ancient. It feels like some kind of ancient tribal memory that is embedded deep in the DNA. We're tribal creatures. We know that inside us at some deep level. And so being together triggers that. We start to resonate with that frequency when we're together with other people, and it brings us joy. And it brings meaning and purpose. And I think it's because of what I was saying before. It's because we reflect ourselves to each other. When we meet another member of a human tribe, it's like meeting a part of ourselves. And I think because of the world events of the past couple of years, many people are feeling so separate and so alone, and it has led to all the depression and the fear that we're hearing about. And you may be in that yourself, I don't know, but it's no wonder. No wonder this is happening, because if being in community is one of the keys to our happiness, but we're being invited into separation and fear, which are the opposites of where we want to be, which is connection and love, then of course we're going to feel alone, and of course we're going to feel depressed and afraid. So I feel like it's important for all of us to remember that connecting with community is somehow deeply embedded in us. It's a heart-opening experience. It's a way to tap into some kind of primal sense of joy within us. There's an innate fulfillment in gathering together with the tribe. And there's another thing. There's another thing I've been focusing on in a deeper way this holiday season. And it's the themes that I mentioned: peace, love, and joy. And now that I'm back here in the United States, I see those words everywhere. Peace, love, and joy. Peace, love, and joy. They're on all the holiday decorations. They're on the cards and the commercials on TV. I don't watch TV, but it's like you see in a lobby, maybe in a lobby where I'm waiting for something, a TV is running, you just see those themes, and it's in the stores, and it's, everybody's playing Christmas music, and you hear those themes playing everywhere. And so I guess what I realized was that it took a fresh set of eyes, after having been away, to come back and to see that and just go like, wow, those are all the passions of my life. That's what I live for, peace and love and joy. Those are the things that are the ultimate fulfillment of the spiritual path. And that's what I've dedicated my life to. And I'm sure it's what many of you have dedicated your lives to. So is it any wonder that we might have happy memories of this time of year from our childhood? That was triggering something in us. And of course, it makes total sense that if you're a sensitive person and you're born into, a culture of muggles, for those of you who watch Harry Potter and know what muggles are, it's a culture that's immersed in the separate system, where almost everybody doesn't believe in anything that they can't touch and see, and hearts are closed most of the time, and living in worry most of the time, and so on. And so if that's the case for you, then of course you're going to feel incredibly happy if there's a time of year where the adults focus more on peace and love and joy. And I guess the insight that I've been having lately is that as adults, I think we've become inured to the commercialization of the holidays. And we've kind of become jaded or maybe bored or cynical about all of this. And, you know, we can tend to take it for granted. It's like the fish that swims in water and the fish doesn't notice the water because he's swimming in it. And so we're overlooking what's really going on because we've become inured to all of it. But the truth is, if we can wake up, we see the magic of it. And that's what's so amazing about this time. It can be a time of total magic if we remember that peace and love and joy are not just Hallmark cards, platitudes that we take for granted, but if we really stop and really remember the true meaning of those words, and we feel them, and we live them, and then we come back to beginner's mind, to what in Zen is called beginner's mind. And I want to talk about that for a minute. Beginner's mind is the practice of seeing the world with fresh eyes. Like we're seeing something for the first time. And it's such a great practice. And I wonder if you know about it. If you don't know about it, it's a fantastic book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And forgive me, I've forgotten the author's name. I know the last name is Suzuki. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. It's a classic spiritual book about this principle. So I invite you to read that book if you haven't read it already, and or reread it if you like. And we can all be practicing beginner's mind for the next weeks. This is about approaching things without preconceptions, with openness, with a sense of eagerness. So whenever we remember, we just pretend that we're seeing and experiencing something for the first time, and we get a totally different appreciation for it. You really stop all the distractions and you totally focus on the present moment. And that's when you start to see beyond the ordinary. You start to see, if you're the fish, you start to see the water you're swimming in. And it's funny, as I talk about this, I'm remembering something somebody posted on my Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, I invite you to go to my Facebook page, Brad Laughlin, and look at this post. It's a few down by now. I posted it last week, but it was this little baby who could barely walk, couldn't talk, and he was stacking these big blocks. They were made of cardboard or something, really light, but they were large, and he was stacking them one on top of the other. And he got, he had like 3 and then 4, and then he got to 5. And by the time he hit 5, the little tower was taller than he was. So it was this amazing accomplishment. And he had this kind of a fit of joy after the 4th one, and then especially after the 5th one. And he was so excited, and he was so proud of himself, and he was in this kind of a disbelief and like a total amazement at the accomplishment. And the look on his face is priceless. It's hard to describe. You have to see it. It's like pure joy, pure excitement. And he couldn't speak, so just squeals of delight, just kind of shrieks. And it was joy, and it was amazement beyond anything that I've ever seen an adult express. So this discussion reminds me of beginner's mind. And I remember when I saw it, I thought, oh my God, when was the last time I felt that way? Why as adults do we stop feeling that way? We can be feeling that way all the time if we practice beginner's mind. And I catch glimpses of it from time to time, and it's so wonderful. It just reminds me of the preciousness of this life and the joy that we come here to experience. So that little 1 minute clip of that baby, if you're around your grandchildren or children and they're that age, you already know what I'm talking about. But if you want a great reminder, go check out that little video on my Facebook page. So I feel like the holidays can offer us that sense of childlike wonder and excitement and that enthusiasm, if we allow it in. And as I've been meditating on all of this, on the experience I was describing of coming full circle with being back in the U.S. for the holidays, I've been practicing beginner's mind, and I've realized that if I allow myself to become more childlike, I can experience a sense of wonder and amazement that there's actually this time, this holiday time, with those themes of peace and joy and love. And, if I'm in that beginner's mind, when I drive through the town and I see those words written on signs or, made into decorations or whatever, I don't just glaze over and ignore them. I allow myself to appreciate them and to feel that inside and really receive it. And then as I embody that, I share it with others. And it can become contagious. You watch other people light up as well. And I recognize just how beautiful all that is. Even if it's just a smile. Smiles are contagious. So, you see at this time, you see all the decorations, the little lights that are up and how beautiful it all is. And I realize that that those qualities, peace and love and joy, they're all that matter. They're the only things that matter in this life. So let's see. I want to close that train of thought with this is an exercise that Leslie shared with me. She used to do this long ago. So I learned this 30 years ago, and I practice it every December, so I'll share it with you. And it's about, in meditation, you tune in as much as you're able to the collective consciousness. And Leslie explained to me that there's a moment, and it happens in the month of December, there's a moment where Christ consciousness, and this isn't religious, it's not about religion, I'm talking about Christ consciousness, which we all have. We're conscious of it to a certain degree, but we all have it. Everyone on the planet has it. And the Christ consciousness descends onto the planet at this time of year, and you never know when. You never quite know when it's going to happen. It might be sudden, it might be gradual, but it's a great exercise to actually tune in to the collective in meditation and see if you can feel it. See if you can feel when the Christ consciousness starts to come in, when it's landed, how strong is it? What does it feel like? We can all practice that. It's a great way to awaken it within ourselves. We attune to it that way. We awaken that part of ourselves, our own Christed consciousness. Okay, so let's move on. Looking at the time, I'm sorry we're running out of time here, and I want to get to the questions. So the last thing I wanted to share with you is called Love is Always the Top Priority. So since, as we said, everybody might be spending time over the holidays with friends and family, I wanted to talk a little bit about navigating our interactions with people who have different opinions from ours. And as you know, we're very likely to come across that. Excuse me for a second. I'm just going to take a sip of water. So I think it's important to remember that this is one of the gifts of this time that we're living in, even though it might seem like a challenge instead of a gift. But nowadays, most people are so hypersensitive about their own opinions and about other people's opinions that it's really easy to get into arguments. And I'm sure you've noticed this, especially if somebody is trying to convince somebody else that their opinion is the right one. That kind of thing is not working very well, and I'll bet you've noticed it. I know we talked about it last month. It doesn't matter how great your truth bomb is, you are not likely to convince somebody else to change their minds these days. And what we're experiencing, the experience that we're all having is not logical. It's much more emotional. So trying to use logic to convince other people is not going to work. So if your truth is different from somebody else's, it's really important to remember to keep love as the main priority above everything else. And that helps our conversations not to degenerate into anger and into separation or even into hatred or, God forbid, violence. But I've seen that happen too. And I'll bet everybody on this call has either had that experience personally or you've been a witness to it. It's pretty common nowadays. So if you sense someone is being a little bit stubborn, especially, don't try to convince them that your opinion is the right one right now. It's not going to go well. And this is a really good time to watch out for stubbornness in ourselves or in other people. And that is the low side of a personality trait that has two. It's like a coin that has two sides, and stubbornness is the one side, the low side of that. But it's important to remember the other side, the high side, and that trait is tenacity or persistence. And I know because I'm a Taurus the bull, and I know before I started doing the egoic clearing work about 30 years ago when I met Leslie, I think I had both of these personality traits, both sides, pretty equally. And now I've learned how to let go of stubbornness and how to live more in the higher quality of tenacity and persistence. And so this is a good time to focus on that, to focus on the persistence and or perseverance, you could say. If you're able to see it in yourself and others, it is easier to steer clear of these arguments and the polarizations. So I invite you to practice that as well over the holidays as you're around people, when these tense conversations, let's say, tend to come up. And it's a very rare person who's able to open to other people's viewpoints and to have a real curiosity about why somebody believes what they do. And the reason it's rare is because in order to be open to other people's viewpoints, you have to be open to change your mind. If somebody else's ideas make sense, then you need to be willing to change your mind. And that takes humility. And that's a rare quality. It's maybe the highest spiritual quality, humility. So I would also say that it takes having a strong enough sense of yourself that you can be open to new ideas. And even especially maybe to new ideas that might threaten your own. It might shake your status quo. It might shake your world. So it's a person with a very strong sense of themselves who can be open to changing their worldview if somebody else has something that makes sense. And so it takes a really strong witnessing practice to be able to do this. And it takes being able to discern very well to be able to engage in that kind of a conversation with somebody where you're really curious about how they came to believe what they believe. So if you've got those qualities, you're a spiritually mature person, and you're one of the rare few. And actually, I'm guessing that that's most of the people on this call. But to recognize that if that's you, you're rare. And it's when you practice that, other people notice and other people will look up to you because you have that quality of openness and a willingness to listen and a willingness to be wrong, a willingness to change. People you become an example for them. So I would highly recommend that over the holidays, if you're with groups and conversations come up, that we all practice that. Okay, so at this point, I want to shift gears into the questions. There were some great questions this month, so I thank you. Thank you, everybody who wrote in your questions, and I'm apologizing in advance if your question doesn't get answered. Let me explain first how it works. So you can email your questions in advance to courses@corelight.org, or if you're on the web call live, you can type your questions in on the Q&A board, and we'll save those for next month because I don't have the wherewithal to go and check them while I talk. And like I said, it's not possible for me to answer all the questions, but I have to tell you that I do read them all, and I try to get to as many of them as I can. And sometimes there are themes, so I'll group them together. But just know that if your question doesn't get answered, it might get answered the following month, or if it doesn't get answered by me, an answer always comes from somewhere. Sometimes after we put it out, we get the answer in a dream, or sometimes in meditation, or from a book, or another teacher, or somebody else that we meet, or whatever. So, okay, I'm going to read to you the first question. Living in the U.S. and working in forensics, I'm seeing the worst in people. The cases that I'm getting are getting darker and darker and more brutal, truly brutal. As a Canadian that grew up in Africa, I don't understand the anger and the fear in a country that has so much when so many in the world have so little. How can we, as a group, change the negative energy that is out there spiraling out of control? It's like a demonic wave that is sucking the life out of people. How can we change the course? What a great question. Thank you so much. And I just want to start by saying I really honor you. I'm sorry that you have to go through that experience. I can imagine it's got to be incredibly challenging and painful. So my heart is with you. And although I'm not in forensics, at one level, I can completely resonate with your experience because I've spent so much time in rural South Africa with the very, very poor. We work in the marginalized areas out there in the villages, and our humanitarian arm, Seeds of Light, we've been offering support there for 20 years to orphans and vulnerable children and so forth. And so for all those years, the 20 years we've been doing this, we've brought groups of Americans, Canadians, Europeans, Brazilians, etc. We've brought them there for the retreats that we lead, and we spend time visiting with the children and the adults that we support in the villages. And one of the common experiences that all these people have there is that they're amazed to discover how happy the Africans are, even though they have almost no material possessions. Most of the people that we support out there are fortunate if they've got a roof over their head, if they've got clothes on their back, if they have food to eat. And many don't. And I can tell you how many times I heard from our participants in our retreats, people saying things like, well, my God, these people are so happy. I can't believe it. They smile and they sing and they dance and they've got light in their eyes and they've got nothing. And I'm almost never that happy, and I've got everything. So how can this be? And I watch them scratching their heads, and I watch the wheels turning inside, and they're trying to fathom how this works. And, very often we'll hear from those people later, like, a year later, and they tell us that that experience radically changed their lives, and how much more gratitude they have for the material abundance in their lives and for, the country that we're born into. And so, when I talk to them and they ask how this can be, what I say is, a poor African can be so happy because they've got this innate, very strong conscious connection to spirit and to the tribe and also to the earth. And so in many cases, for all of us from, let's call it the Western countries, European-derived colonized countries, we've lost that connection, many of us. So we think we've lost it. It's still there, it's just we're not conscious of it. So yeah, we've got a lot to learn and to receive from the Africans, even though they're materially poor, just like they've got a lot to learn and receive from us because we're so materially wealthy. And in many cases, we're spiritually poor. So I say all this because I think it goes to the heart of your question. As souls, we choose to be born into the culture that we're born into because our lessons are there. So we came into, whether it's the United States or Canada or whether Europe or wherever you are, we came to learn in the lessons we learn in that country. Like in the example I'm giving here, like we learn gratitude. We learn generosity. Giving to the Africans, giving to anybody who's less fortunate that we are is a huge lesson for us. So having appreciation for the extraordinary material abundance that we have in our countries is so important for us. I remember reading somewhere, somebody described the average person, the middle-class person in countries like ours, lives better than kings and queens lived centuries ago. Kings and queens back in the Middle Ages could have never dreamed of hot and cold running water in their house and lights that you can turn on with the flip of a switch. And, the list goes on and on and on. A car. Everybody's got, transportation. I mean, it's just amazing, the material abundance that we have. And we do tend to take it for granted until we come across people like those very poor people that I described. So the lesson that I was just describing is essentially that money can't buy happiness. Basically learning that our material culture has limits. So we incarnated to learn that it's our connection with spirit and our connection with the tribe or the human tribe, whatever you want to call it, and our connection with the earth that brings us the happiness and the purpose that we're really looking for. Like we spoke about this in the call earlier today, so I'm not going to elaborate on that, but you know what I'm talking about. And because we feel so disconnected from spirit and from each other and from the natural world, we feel like there's a part of us that's missing. And we're desperate. We're desperate to find that connection again. We're always out there looking, right? We're searching for our separate parts, our missing parts, trying to get them back, it's like we feel like we can just get them back, we'll be okay. We'll be home again. And right now, we're in this transition between ages. So we're living still in the age of separation, but we're leaving that age and we're entering the age of patriarchy, or age of separation, whatever you want to call it, and we're entering the new paradigm of the heart. But before we can leave that old world behind, we have to complete with it. So I'm circling around to the answer to your question here, forgive me. But to complete with that old paradigm, we have to face the shadow of it. We have to make the unconscious conscious. All the aspects of that third dimensional patriarchal consciousness need to be brought out into the light, right? We need to bring them out into the light of day. We need to examine them. We need to process them. We need to release them. And so how do we do that? And I think, again, this gets to the heart of your question, and your question is the heart of this issue I'm talking about. You asked, how can we, as a group, let me read it again. How can we, as a group, change the negative energy that is out there spiraling out of control? It's like a demonic wave that is sucking the life out of people. How can we change the course? And the answer is exactly what we're talking about. First, it's recognizing that we're in a time where the shadow is coming to the surface for examination and processing. And how do we do that? That's the path of making the unconscious conscious. It's the path that we call self-inquiry. And to add what I already said, this is not about going out and fixing other people. The key is to process our own consciousness. We process our own shadow side and our own reactions to the shadow side that's arising in the world. Because the greatest gift that we can give is our own awakening. And I know that may seem contradictory, to focus on yourself is helping other people, but that's the truth. That's the metaphysical truth. We put it's so important. We put it in our tagline for CoreLight: change the world by changing yourself. And I realize that if you might be new to CoreLight, you may not know what I mean by processing consciousness. And so if that's true for you, we have some processing techniques that we offer in our books and audios. And if that interests you, I recommend going to our web store to see the books and the audios. And you can go to our free resources pages and poke around a little bit. And we've got free sample chapters of our books. So I would recommend you start there to see if you're drawn to one of the books, because they all explain this. They all explain about processing consciousness, and they all offer some simple techniques that are so powerful. Like, for example, the witnessing technique that we've been talking about today. That's one of them. So there's more here. Excuse me. There's more I need to say. Just give me a sec here. Just getting a sip of water. So just to circle back and to be clear about something that I said earlier, I don't want to paint a skewed picture. There are also plenty of criminals out in rural villages in South Africa. They do horrible acts of violence. I'm not even going to tell you some of the things that I know about, but it may be just like what you're talking about in your question. There are plenty of people who are just too afraid to even go out into those rural villages because of this violence that happens out there. And they think we're nuts, They think we're crazy for working out there and for helping those people. But the point is that the shadow is everywhere. There's nowhere that the shadow is not. It's not a case of the grass being greener on the other side of the fence. So I would propose that the anger and the fear and the violence that you're talking about in your question is coming out everywhere, and it's simply just time to see it. We need to see it. So this is a shift in collective consciousness globally. It doesn't matter what country you're in. Every country has its shadow being revealed. Each country has its own flavor. Every flavor is a little bit different than the next. And so the entire planet is in that, it's in that black tarry stuff that I was talking about before. Remember what I was saying about the closer that we get to the light, the more intense the shadow. So just imagine how close we must be to the light, because the shadow is so intense. So, we may even start to see more shadow coming out. And I'm not trying to scare you, but the truth is it's time for it. It's time for it to come out. And actually, it's a gift, even though that's very hard to fathom. But for shadow to be revealed is a gift. And if you're on a path of making the unconscious conscious, if you've been doing that for any length of time, you know what I'm talking about. You've experienced it. And when you understand that, you discover that it's a gift when you can witness that unconscious shadow. I mean, there's such a relief. It's like the relief in the body when the shadow gets put out on the table. When the hidden stuff is revealed, it's not scary. Well, it's not as scary as we make it out to be. This reminds me of something I'm just going to share with you. Have you ever had that experience? Have you had that experience of thinking something is so scary, and when you actually name it and confront it and tell somebody about it, it's like, it just falls away. And I remember there's a friend of mine who's in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and as a part of AA, you have to go through the 12 steps, and one of the steps is writing down a list of all your shadow stuff, your secrets. And then you have to read it to your sponsor. And this friend of mine was so afraid to reveal his shadow side to another person that he realized, those secrets held enormous power over him. And so it was like he created, by suppressing those secrets, he'd created a monster. It was like this huge, he described it to me, he said it was like this huge monster hiding in a closet, and he felt like it was going to devour him. And that was partly what was driving him to drink. And so he never shared those secrets with anybody. And he was absolutely terrified of being judged when he had to tell them to his sponsor. So when he finally told his sponsor some of the biggest, darkest secrets of his life, and he opened the door to that closet, he said his sponsor's reaction was, "Really? That's all? That's it? That's what you were so afraid to tell me? Isn't there any more?" And so he said it was just this completely anticlimactic thing. And his whole life changed, because he realized that the big monster in the closet turned out to be basically just a scared little boy. Oh, it makes me cry. And I guess I wonder if that's what we're going through collectively. I wonder, as this great shadow becomes unearthed, I wonder if we're just going to discover a bunch of scared little children. And then most of us will feel relief. It may not feel so good to them, but it might to us. Anyway, just want to complete the answer to your question, because we're really running out of time here. So let me see. So violence and what we might call the lower vibratory emotions, those things, they've been running rampant on Earth for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, but certainly throughout the age of patriarchy, so let's say thousands of years. So some might even argue that it was uglier in past times, like the Dark Ages, where the level of cruelty and torture and war was possibly worse than it is now. And I don't really know, but what I know is that we're moving out of that. We're moving out of that old 3D polarized consciousness, and it's time now for humanity to graduate into this new paradigm of the heart. So that's what we're seeing, and I feel like your question fits right into that. You've described it so well. And I know I've been reading quite a bit. I've been researching and reading and watching documentaries. And I know some people are describing what's happening on Earth right now as that we're in a transition from a level 0 civilization to a level 1 civilization. And level 1, excuse me, is basically a global peaceful civilization. And that includes peaceful technologies, like what they call 0-point technologies, like free energy. And apparently, civilizations go all the way up from 0 to like 9 and 10 and above, and up chain become you become an interstellar civilization, and you go up to cosmic consciousness civilizations where everybody's enlightened from birth. I mean, isn't that amazing? It's sort of unfathomable. And in fact, we can't fathom what those higher levels of civilization are like. Our human minds can't even fathom them. So we don't really have time to talk about that today, but maybe another time we can talk about that. It's fascinating for me. And I feel like that's so inspiring to keep that in mind. That's where we're going. We're in our evolution and we're heading to those places. And we're going to get there. So we just have to hang in as we go through the dark, tarry stuff. Okay, thank you for your question. I hope that helps. Next question. Meditation really helps me, but when I don't do meditation, fear slowly creeps in. What to do? So you're talking about fear creeping in when you're not meditating, and I get that. And I can tell you that's happening to so many people I know, and I include myself. I don't know how many people on the call today or listening to this in the future are also having a similar experience, but it's why I don't skip my daily meditation at all, because it's critical. We have to practice the things we know that help us get through the waves of fear that are passing through. So meditation, highly recommended, self-care, all the things you know to do to remind you how to get through the fear. And again, I said this before, so your question taps into what I've already said, but it's in the collective. Fear is in the collective. It's running rampant these days, and it's probably not even yours. Our thoughts and our feelings are shared. So you could easily just be feeling the collective. I feel like that's what's happening to me. I have no reason to feel afraid. And yet, here we are. Like, I'm feeling these waves of fear passing through. So, there's so much that can be said about fear, and we've already talked a lot about it, and we're running out of time. So let me just see. There's one thing I can say about it, just quickly. I feel like we're all in this process of waking up more than we know, and the process of waking up is about the dissolution of the ego. And what does the ego do if it has nothing to fear? It drums something up to be afraid about. Like, it's the ego's job to stay alive. So I'm not trying to make the ego bad and wrong. That's not what I'm saying. It's just the nature of the ego. The vibration of fear is what literally makes up the walls of our ego. So as we grow and expand, we're literally pushing those boundaries. We're passing through those boundaries, which are made of the fear vibration. So we're going to feel the fear. So the fear that you're feeling when you're not in meditation could just be that you're expanding. You're waking up, you're growing. We all are. So it's not surprising that we're feeling the fear vibration, because we're probably passing through it every day in our own aura. In our own egoic, the built-in egoic mechanism. It's like that mechanism of the egoic wall that surrounds us. It's literally a mechanism to keep the status quo so the ego can remain the same. The ego is synonymous with control and remaining the same. So as we change and grow, of course, we're going to be passing through the walls of fear. And so it takes courage to be able to feel that fear, but not to buy into it and not run away. I remember something Nelson Mandela said. He said, courage isn't the absence of fear, but it's the triumph over it. So that's kind of what we're talking about here, is having the courage, having the heart, having the witness to be able to feel the fear and pass through it. And remember that this is our awakening experience. So the steps of it are practicing witnessing the fear vibration, remembering it's not real, remembering it's just a frequency, feeling it, allowing it to pass through you, reminding yourself, I'm not the fear, I'm pure awareness, this too shall pass, and so on, as I said. And then letting it go. And just spending as much time in meditation as you can and in witnessing. And I just also want to say, to close out on this question, I'm going to be focusing more on this very thing in an upcoming course. I'm going to be offering the Spiritual Warrior Training course in 2022. And so Leslie talks about this a lot in that course. We'll use her audios for the course, but I'll teach it. So we're going to go into this more in depth. But that's sort of a taste of what we're talking about. And gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm looking at the time, and it's time to wrap up. So I apologize. That's all the time we have for questions. Please forgive me if I didn't get to your question. I do invite you to write in. I love your questions. So please, or sharing, if you have a sharing as well. I love those too. Please write. And I promised you the closing exercise. So let me tell you about that exercise quickly. It's very quick. It's a journaling exercise and a meditation exercise. It's about visioning 2022 and about you journal what you want to manifest. So you spend a little time in meditation and feeling into what it is that you want to manifest for the year. And you write that down in your journal. And it might also include the things that you're letting go of, the things you don't want, you know. Leslie and I used to do this every year, and we would do it on New Year's Eve. And sometimes we would do it on Solstice, because that's also, you know, both are power times. It's a time of closing out on the old and opening up to the new. So you can also just keep a running list. Like you can be practicing this for the several weeks leading up to that time, where you're keeping a running list of the things that you want to manifest. And then when you're ready, you close out with a ceremony. You make a formal offering of your list of the things you want to manifest and the list of the things you want to release. And you can do it in meditation. Like we used to do it on New Year's Eve. We would sit and we would literally crumple up the paper and put it in the fire sometimes. At least the things we wanted to let go of, the things we wanted to manifest, we would fold the paper and put it on the altar for a while, or put it in a drawer with sacred objects where it would sit for the year. And then at the end of the following year, we'd pull it out and read it. And inevitably, it was always amazing to see what had happened and the power of our intentions and how those things manifested. Sometimes it wasn't exactly what we thought it would be. It was something different, but what we put down manifested. And I invite you to try that exercise if you have never, well, I'll bet you probably have some similar ritual that you do, but I would invite you to try this. It's very empowering. Okay, so let's take a final couple of minutes here to close our session for today. And I invite you to pause and get comfortable again and close your eyes. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths. Just relaxing. Completely letting go with each breath. We give thanks for this time that we shared today. We give thanks for all the gifts of life, even though they may seem like challenges. Some part of us knows that they're also gifts. And we ask for support from the invisible realms in deeply knowing that our challenges are gifts and opportunities. So we make an offering right now of all our challenges, the big decisions we're facing, challenges we're facing, changes that are happening, discomfort we're feeling, the intensity of being in the dark veil. So let's visualize all of us in this circle. There are hundreds of us around the planet who participate in these calls, many different countries. So let's visualize ourselves holding hands in a circle, several hundred people holding hands in a circle around the globe. And let's all put into the center of our circle these things I'm describing. And let's visualize a big bonfire being lit and all of these things being taken away. And then the ashes going up into the air and then returning, sprinkling down on us as blessings, like little snowflakes, little particles of light, falling down on us, lighting us up, bringing to us all the things that we want to manifest, especially the joy and the peace and the love. So feel yourself filling up now with joy and peace and love. And feel the weight of the shadow leaving you in the bonfire. And the more you release, the lighter you feel, and the more you fill up with love and joy and peace. And you might find a smile appearing on your face. And we call on the Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, Self that we all are. We call on all our guides and teachers, all the beings who surround us in the highest love and support. We ask that you hold our hands this day as we walk out into the world now. Help us to share our love and our joy and our peace. Help us to have beginner's mind as we navigate coming times. Let us remember who we truly are, which is love. And let us share that with the world. And we give such great thanks knowing that this is so. We give thanks for all the support we receive from the invisible realms. We give thanks for the love that we share, for our spirit tribe, our spiritual community, and all the blessings that brings us. So I thank you, everybody. I thank you so much for showing up, for being part of the circle. And before we close, just a reminder to please join us on the Solstice for our global synchronized meditation, where we create a field of love and power of one for the planet. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Alalaho. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I love you. I wish you a happy holiday and happy New Year, happy solstice. And I will look forward to seeing you in the new year. The new dates of the spiritual weather reports are listed on our events page now, so you can check those out. And look forward to seeing you next year. So much love to you. Bye for now.